Jeanne Allen, CEO of Centre for Education Reform, thank you so much for your time today.
Welcome.
Well, going into kind of what's happening in the media right now, look, everything is centred around anti-Semitism, as you're aware. We've got anti-Semitism on college campuses. It has been the forefront of media attention, especially since the October 7 attack. What is your response to the state of racism and prejudice on these college campuses today?
Well, it is really tragic and disappointing that anyone in this day and age should be made to feel or actually be discriminated against for their color, for their religion, for their judgment, for how they live, for what they say. On the heels of, in just a couple of weeks, a tribute day we have to Martin Luther King Jr., I just can't but keep from thinking about that prescient comment he made that we need to judge people not by the color, by the color of their skin, but by their character. Judge not by the content of the color of one's skin, but by their character. We cannot tolerate anything he was saying to us, not now, not ever, that puts someone down, and particularly given this incredible bad history that our world has about anti-Semitism. The fact that we allowed in companies on college campuses, that we gave permits to people in the streets of New York or Boston or Washington, D.C. to basically campaign against people of the Jewish faith is actually, to me, appalling.
Jeanne, do you think these universities, specifically these elite Ivy League universities that are under the microscope, have done enough to protect these students who have either been verbally or physically attacked, if they're Jewish and Palestinian?
The number one thing that a leader can do, it's the bully pulpit. Maybe there's not a lot you can do to quell protests, or of course you want free speech. And we know that that's a difficult road, right? We've seen court decisions over time about that. This has been, it goes back to Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, discussions about what's free and what's right. But the reality is standing up and saying no when you're a college president, as Liz McGill, University of Pennsylvania president, did not do, as Claudine Gay, University president of Harvard, did not do, as MIT did not do, as so many did not do.
Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
Look, my alma mater, Dickinson College, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, Judge Jones, the president of Dickinson, did say no, enough. He put out an incredibly strong letter, and everyone thought that he would get attacked for it. And instead, he was praised by people even who did not agree for taking a position of integrity and justice and understanding there are different points of view. But there might be different points of view, but you never may say something about someone or protest the fact that unequivocally there are people who are being hurt by those actions.
Jeanne, what did you make of that Congress hearing between Elise Stefanik and those presidents that you just mentioned from Harvard, MIT and UPenn, especially Dr. Claudine Gay, who called her criticised response in that Congress room? She called it a product of a well-laid trap, kind of placing blame on the Republican Congress members who were, throwing questions her way. What did you make of that interaction?
I thought the whole thing was so unfortunate on many levels, and one that struck me the most is how proud I was to know that there is an African American woman leading one of the most elite institutions, not just in America, but in the world, and how proud Black women must have been looking at her and how much she should have held herself to a higher standard. And so the vast amount of inequity and injustice going on all levels is incredible. But this obsession with the elite at the expense of kids who will know how to protest and act and operate better on every college campus if they only had access is what we really should be hot and bothered about.
Do you agree because obviously Dr. Claudine Gay stepped down the other day for her role after copious amounts of backlash, and obviously Harvard protected her for as long as they could, but then she decided ultimately that she should step down. Do you believe that the university should have been firing her earlier on, or kind of forced her hand earlier on to resign?
You know, I would say that the university should have taken a much stronger stand against both the acts of anti-Semitism on campus. I think they should have chastised her for not being more forceful in the hearing. And I think that she, like everybody else in the United States and our kids, should be held again to the utmost standards. What to me forced her out is that she refused to acknowledge those things.
Yeah.
And again, it's unfortunate, it pains me, since we work with so many people of color to resurrect and change the way American education works, that this has been made about race. And I appreciate it, and I understand how painful this must be for people of color, and to feel like so many things in America, this is prejudice.
Do you believe
and I
that-
don't know motives. Like, I can't ascribe that, but all I can say is that we need to focus on what is we are going to tolerate as a society from every American, no matter who they are and what they look like. And we need to get back on the track of educating students and not being so consumed by the elite.
Jeannie, do you believe that this kind of problem with these universities, whether they are elite or not, whether they're Ivy League or they're not at all, are so heavily kind of indoctrinated by this wokeness, as it's been called, that this has been the result? There's been this division, there's been these protests, this fighting.
I think we've lost our sense, our moral compass about what's right and wrong. We refuse to say that there's a right and wrong, and it pervades all of higher education. Absolutely, it pervades schools. And whether you call it wokeness, or you call it relativism, or you call it people trying to be kind and sympathetic, like I know people who think it's all of the above, and they're all good, decent people. But the reality is we're too worried about what someone else is going to think, and we're too willing to get in a fight about something before we even understand it and have studied it.
What do you think about, in the aftermath of all of this, in the aftermath of the last few months, that this, when it comes to these big donors withdrawing this funding? I mean, there was even a report that said Harvard had lost $1 billion in funding, with other reports saying that future students were withdrawing their applications from these Ivy League colleges. What do you think about that?
It's definitely going to be a backlash. There definitely has been a backlash. What's very exciting, even before all this was happening, is that the number of colleges and universities across the country that are truly doing innovative things have grown by leaps and bounds. You have universities like Arizona State University that serves some 200,000 students nationwide. They're online, they're on ground, they're in a mix of those things. You can get a degree in 2 years, 4 years, as long as it takes. They're actually, and it's run currently by somebody who was an Ivy League president before. Those universities, Purdue University, so many across the country are growing by leaps and bounds because people are realizing they want really good education. That's why you go to school. You don't go to school to come up with a whole bunch of agendas. You go to school for learning critical thinking, for learning knowledge, for learning how to put history in context, for learning how to be a better person. And they're growing by leaps and bounds, and we're going to continue to see that. And it's only the universities who have forgotten why they exist to begin with. They're going to continue to lose.
Jeanne Allen, CEO of the Centre for Education Reform, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.